Welcome to Power Up Your Practice. I'm your host, Ruby Powers, a law firm owner and law practice management consultant, author, podcaster, and adjunct professor. Each week, I'm so excited to invite other guests on to be able to learn from the inspiring minds and share practical tips so that we can all work smarter, serve our clients even better, and grow our firm. But after all, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. So let's power up together and continue to create the law firm and the life you deserve.
And where it's evolved, because I have a pretty long background in academic public health, which is I'm on the marketing communication side. I'm not, a researcher myself, but got really interested in sort of like big systemic societal level problems, and certainly like access to justice and access to law fits right in there. I would even argue that it's kind of actually is a public health issue in a lot of ways because the way it impacts people's lives. But so when I saw what Rich was building, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of potential here. So that's when it kind of lit the fire of creating a tool that would be, that people could use.
Welcome back to Power Up Your Practice. I'm your host, Ruby Powers, and I'm excited to have Cara Peterson and Richard DiBona from Describe.ai. We met at ABA Tech Show earlier this year and just really got excited about access to justice and research, and just was really fascinated by them and what they were up to. And it seems like they've been doing some amazing things since then and are getting recognized for awards and have been out and about sharing the news about Describe. But I also wanted to talk about research and access to justice, and just their innovation in jumping into a field that is not necessarily their normal industry. So Cara and Richard, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Ruby. It's great to see you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about neither one of you are attorneys, but you got into legal research. Like, even attorneys don't usually like to get into legal research. So like what
right, you mean that's
what
not
behooved you to do that?
It's not everyone's childhood dream to say, when I grow up, I'm going to be in legal research. No,
no offense to all.
yes, no offense. But it is fascinating. So yeah, and we got into it actually through a personal reason. So we had our own issue that we were trying to understand in our own life. And just disclaimer, Rich and I are married. So when we talk about we're co-founders, but also co-founders of our children and of our life together and all that good stuff. So we faced a personal situation where we wanted to do some legal research, not even knowing probably that's what it was called, right? We just were curious, like, how to deal with this issue. And it was an employment issue. And very quickly saw how difficult it actually is as sort of an average person to access this information in a way that was approachable. And this was about 2 years ago. So when you think about it in AI time, that's about 10,000 years ago at this point, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But then Rich being an engineer, Rich was able to look at it through like a lens of data rather than sort of.
It actually goes back further than that. Like, the issue happened right around when the pandemic started. And I remember spending all these nights, because there was nothing to do, I would be reading like raw judicial opinions, just like at night, like as my reading material, I'd be reading raw judicial opinions. And Cara was like, are you crazy? And I'm like, I don't know what else to do. And so, so when OpenAI came out, like at the end of 2022, as a software engineer, like I come from a traditional software engineering background and big data and everything. I always like to try new things. And this seemed like everybody was talking about it. So I tried out their API by taking some of these judicial opinions that I had been reading and trying to summarize them. And so I was like amazed at the output of them. Like, it was able to take these complex judicial opinions and summarize them down. So I was able to understand them a little better. So then I started taking actual other judicial opinions from that I found online and summarizing them. And the original idea for our tool was kind of like cliff notes for judicial opinions. And so we kind of, after I summarized them, I decided to make them searchable so that you can use them. And then that's where everything came from.
No, you got it.
That's
Okay.
that's awesome. I was actually talking to some people yesterday about how 'cause I'm an adjunct professor, and if I say Cliff Notes, then my students don't know what I'm talking about because I
Yeah, I was.
Spark Notes now,
Yeah.
and I
Spark
was like,
Notes.
I was
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, but
Yeah.
I know what you I knew what you were talking about.
Okay.
So Describe is a platform transforming access to U.S. case law.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit more about it and how what are some of the tell us a little bit more about it and like
Yeah.
what can you find when you go to the website and what
Yeah.
services you're providing.
Yeah, happy to. And just talk a little bit like about even where it started and where it's evolved because I have a pretty long background in academic public health, which is I'm on the marketing communication side. I'm not, a researcher myself, but got really interested in sort of like big systemic societal level problems and certainly like access to justice and access to law fits right in there. I would even argue that it's kind of actually is a public health issue in a lot of ways because the way it impacts people's lives. Um, so when I saw what Rich was building, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of potential here. So that's when it kind of lit the fire of creating a tool that would be, that people could use. And when we first started, we just put it out for free. And, we actually did some more advanced things to the original tool, like translating all the case law into Spanish, which is cool because there was one of the legal aid groups that we were talking to said that would be helpful. So we did it. And with AI, you can build really good tools for that if you know what you're doing. And so we did that and we summarized, we simplified the summaries in 5th grade reading level English and 5th grade reading level Spanish because there was feedback we got along the way too that sometimes, the simpler summaries are helpful for some clients. And also we found out along the way that the law students really love the 5th grade reading level summaries, which is hilarious. So I don't know if that's good or bad. You're a
I mean,
professor.
I think it's refreshing,
Yeah.
because you're just read a lot of high level language and jargon, and then you're like, what did I just read? And then you have to read, and then you're reading well, I mean, it's been a while since I was in law school, but like, copious case law, sort of like what you were doing with Richard, and you're just like, what are they saying? Like, let me.
Yeah.
It's like its own language. And then so we got really into that and then we started, and I can talk about this more in a bit, but we started to realize that it wasn't necessarily pro se or self-represented litigants that were using this as much. We thought kind of at first that's where it was going to be, but we've realized along the way that just having access to case law, I mean, that's good and informational, but it's not going to tell someone what to do next or how to deal with their situation. So yes, it gives them some agency, but it's not providing solutions. So there are other parts of the access to justice ecosystem that do that work. So that's awesome. We think that our tool can help them do more work, kind of thing like that. But so we pretty quickly realized we were a tool for professionals. So that's when we built the professional tools on top of the free tools.
Oh, okay. Okay. And when you're referring to like the difference between like legal information and legal advice a little bit because
Yeah.
you're providing legal information, but that would be to a legal provider, an attorney to provide the advice.
Right. And as I'm sure you know, because you're in legal tech, how many places can get themselves in trouble for unauthorized practice of law, right? So that is like a very real and very important definition, and I guess delineation maybe is a better way to say it, that, providing information is great, but once you cross the line into providing advice, you're in a very different ballpark. And honestly, even though I think AI is going to be transformational for the legal industry, it doesn't replace what attorneys do. If anything, it should help them get rid of the minutia work so that they can do more of the lawyering that they need to do to help more clients. So that's kind of the hope. So yeah, so we never had an appetite or an interest to get into that sort of legal services. But again, there are a lot of companies started by attorneys, that can do that kind of work who are doing really cool stuff. And you can learn about them at the Justice Technology Association. There's a great organization, a nonprofit organization that works with those kind of startups. So if people are interested in that space, it's a good place to look.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a great mention because I think this is one of our first episodes to have. I mean, we've had a lot of legal tech topics, but I think this is the closest to like access to justice or justice tech conversation. So normally research can be quite expensive. And so, I mean, so when you were trying to find, so it was not only like access to finding the information, but also trying to understand it. Was that sort of like what you were trying to cut through in creating this tool?
Yeah, Rich, maybe explain that from your data perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we were fortunate to come along at a time when there's also this kind of parallel push. Harvard kind of started it, and then this place out in Oakland called the Free Law Project. Um, to kind of, it's this push called freeing the law. And
Mm.
so, like, the law is supposed to be public domain, but it's traditionally kind of been, not owned, but kind of gate kept by a couple of larger firms. And so there's been a push in the last several years to get that law out there, because it is public domain, as I said. So we have a commercial license with a firm that, or the place out in Oakland. And so we got our case law from them. And yeah, what was the other part of your question?
Well, I mean, I just think that for a lot of even lawyers, like with small firms, like research tools can be quite expensive.
Yeah.
And then also just, maybe the principal attorney, if it's a smaller firm, like they might have a good understanding of what to do, but then they have their team members, like law clerks or associates and things like that, helping support them. Often you delegate that to them to help you
Right.
and navigate and understanding it. But I mean, this sort of could help those situations and breaking barriers to for all different types of firms, or even the free tools for just layperson to be able to research for
Right. And
their own needs.
it's exactly right. And legal research, or legal information, whatever, like the big publishers that we all know, the Voldemorts that who will not be named, they're they have great products and no question about that. But because of the nature of the work that they do and how difficult it is, until AI is coming around and changing that, is, the gatekeeping Rich is referring to has to do with, the publishers, right? So people who they certainly would never claim to own the law, but because of the way things are published in the courts, need to rely on these big companies, because they usually don't have technology budgets or the infrastructure to build their own solutions. We've built this kind of weird situation in this country, maybe elsewhere, where we have a duopoly kind of controlling public information, right? So that's a strange situation. And the other thing that's strange about it is because there's so few people that have, or few organizations that have access to information, their pricing can be whatever they want. So, and now I'm not one of those people who think that, creating a business around this kind of information is a bad thing. Like, in fact, they're doing very important work and they should charge money for their tools. Like, they're not in the business of, just, being a nonprofit and just giving it away for free. So I actually don't want to throw shade. It's more that we've created a situation, knowingly or not, that doesn't allow for competition because the barriers to entry are so high. So what that means, in just sort of layman's terms, is to do the kind of work that Rich is talking about, or that you get when you go into one of these larger data sets and are doing your research, is very human driven, right? So when you think about analyzing case law, or coming up with citations, or good law, bad law, all this stuff, it's very intensive for human beings to do, right? So a lot of brain power. And so what AI changes, and why there's so many entrants in this space right now, and anyone who's following legal tech will see. I mean, just go to Tech Show and check out the Startup Alley, and you'll see like how many cool companies are coming up in this space. AI allows us to mimic, and the argument is out whether it's mimicking well or better than humans, worse than humans, about the same, to mimic some of that human intellectual activity that goes into creating these tools, so that people can really cut out a huge amount of the brain power and the cost to get to these to these insights in legal research. So that's what we
can
did.
use their brain power in other ways.
Yeah, exactly. So it's again, it's not like, oh, get rid of the humans, we don't need the humans. It's like, no. The humans can then be put in different parts of the process where they're working with people and things like that. So that's why you see a lot of consolidation, a lot of acquisitions, a lot of sort of partnerships, because I think all the big companies are realizing maybe for the first time in their existence, there's meaningful threat to their business model.
This episode is sponsored by Candle AI, the legal email assistant that helps legal teams spend less time on client emails. You heard me right, spending less time on emails. Candle AI works with both Gmail and Outlook, so you don't have to learn a new tool. And then it connects with popular case management systems like Clio, Filevine, INSSoom, and more to come. It instantly shows you your case and the client details the moment you open a client email, and right inside your inbox. Then that means less context switching and time spent jumping to different tabs to figure out what you need to respond. Candle can also draft context-aware responses to client emails and makes it easy to create, edit, and manage your email templates. If you want to save time and take back control of your inbox, check out Candle AI. I highly suggest it. Well, so there's a lot to unpack there, but you were Describe was a finalist on Startup Valley, right?
Yeah.
So that was like, we need to make sure that was said. So not only
yes, thank you, Bob.
And that's huge, and it's a really great way to highlight up and comers and sort of let us know what's going on. And so I'm going to mention the ABA Tech Show, but before I do that, I wanted, I started my law firm in 2009. And one of the things I think what allowed me to be able to do that was because the barrier to entry, a lot of the barrier to entry was a lot less to having your own firm. There was the cloud was more prevalent. Social media was really big in a way to look for low cost or no cost, get your name out there. And, but there still was this intimidation about like the big firms that had all those libraries of books and how expensive research was. And I feel like we're at another critical juncture right now for those starting firms or maybe reconfiguring their firms because of these AI tools and research accessibility that's continuing to make that barrier to entry less and less to be able to, so that someone who might be starting their firm right now or someone who's sort of reconfiguring it who has a lot more access to tools. And I don't know, it's an exciting time. I feel like just as much as like that 09 it was tough. It was very tough, but but it that 08, 09, 10 time. But we're at a good juncture again where if you just look around and you use the tools that are available to you, and Describe's a really great option for that as well. So anyway, I just wanted to mention, like, I see that because legal research is one of the other things that I think was a big ticket item on the line item of having to have a firm.
So,
and we kind of made the transition from free, like we still have the free product, which is what I talked about, like the summarization of case law and the translations and the natural language search. That's still out there for free. But if you're a lawyer, or you really want to do deep legal research, you need to know whether the results are good law, bad law. Like you need to be able to see certain things and analysis of them. And so we got all this feedback. And so we built some of these other features, like now we have a citator in there, an AI citator that shows you the treatments in real time and all that. And that's all in response to customer feedback. So without those types of features, like you can't really be anything but just a reference for the other, because you can't really cite cases that are overruled or things like that.
Or that don't exist.
Or don't exist, yeah.
Or in the future.
Yeah, there's all of in the future.
That was one of my favorite hallucinations. It was a case that it was in 23 or 24, and the case was in 25. I'm like, probably not. Might have been a flag. But But back to your point, it kind of like if it all works out well, right? Like there's still the jury, not to use a legal analogy, but here we go. Like the jury is still out, right, on a lot of how this is going to land, right? Like is AI going to just make big law bigger, serve the well-served better, and just make the sort of, David and Goliath sort of story even more real? Or, and I hope this is the way it goes, is that it'll level the playing field a little bit? Because if you're in a small firm or like a solo, practitioner or whatever, and you happen to be going up against somebody who's, retained a big firm or someone like that, they just have so many more resources, right? And so some of these AI tools will give you, of course, they will have them too. So my analogy may fall apart at this point, but like you'll just have access to a lot more information and sort of analysis than you would have been able to have before. So it does have the potential, at least, to give the smaller firms and attorneys a leg up, or at least a bit of a boost. I mean, that's the hope.
No, definitely. And David won in the end. So
that's right.
That gives us hope, right? But I think when you were there's also about, you were mentioning when we were getting ready about research and keywords and Boolean search. What do you what should lawyers know about that and their research?
Yeah, that's interesting, because the search that we have, the natural language, which a lot of people are saying they have it now, but what it allows you to do is, if you don't exactly know the legal term, or maybe it's not on the top of your mind, or you can search for concepts, or just like case facts, or if you do know legal terms, you could search for those. But what it finds similar things. Like one of the examples we use is, maybe you don't know a lot about the law, and you could type in like, somebody forced my mother to change her will, and then you'll get results about undue influence. Like, but you didn't know what undue influence was, but now you do, and so you're more knowledgeable, and then you could start searching for undue influence. But in related to what we were just talking about, like, we had just that search, and then people were like, well, I'm used to searching this other way, and sometimes if I try to search for an exact citation or an exact person's name, natural language search doesn't work as well, which is true. So we built in like we made an index of every single word in every single judicial opinion, and made it so that you can search for exact words, and the ands and the ors, and with quotes and proximity and sequential, into all those traditional searches that you're used to. So you do like with your what you were asking about Boolean search, and what I was saying about like features. Like, you can't just put something out there that's so different. People do have expectations of things that they need, so you do need to keep features in there that people are used to, but you can put a new kind of spin on them and make them easier.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, and so you create this tool in the last 2 years, and like how, and you're not lawyers, so which is fascinating, because you might as well have an honorary JD at this point with like
I know. I keep
just said.
I keep thinking that. I'm like, maybe I should go to law school. I'm like, that was kind of cool.
We do have advisors who are legal librarians. And
I figured.
Legal, so we didn't do it completely blind.
That's the first thing we did. We're like,
Kara's uncle is a lawyer, so the first thing we did when we started making this thing, we're like, hey, Pete, can you like read these cases and read this stuff for us? And he's like, yeah, sure. But
and And the smartest thing we did, and like, I think all the attorneys out there who serve small businesses will appreciate this. Even though we're bootstrapped and we didn't take any funding, so we can kind of do what we want with the pricing and whatever, which is really nice. If you can do that, it's great to avoid the VC funding. But the thing that we said we are not going to try to do ourselves is our own legal. So we actually, the first thing we did was get for our terms and all that stuff, we made sure like we hired a professional. So we did not make that mistake, thinking that we could represent ourselves or do something like that. So just like I wouldn't let Rich, no offense, do the electrical in our house, like hire the electrician. Like there's some areas where it's like you don't want to self-source that stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. So how did you break into the industry? And I mean, I'm so glad I met you at ABA
Yeah.
Tech Show, and
Yeah.
you guys were highlighted with the Startup Alley. So that was a really good excuse for me to go to your booth. And I think someone else was like, you should go talk to them. But
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll have to give so again, we aren't attorneys, but I did work at Suffolk University Law School I was a marketing director for a while. And so I have to give them a little credit that I think maybe through osmosis, because they've always been so like tech forward. Like this was in like the early 2000s or like 2006, 2010 or something like that. So, way, way back. I remember having arguments with the deans at the time. And there was a panel of deans that I had to have this argument with about why we should have a Facebook page. And they're like, no. So we eventually did it, but maybe they were right looking back. But anyway, so I have to give them a little credit for getting my wheels spinning somewhere in my head about legal technology. But anyhow, so we were really lucky, I think, in that we didn't know what we were getting into. So in some ways, like if we joke about this, like if we maybe would have understood like just how big and crazy and complex this project actually was, maybe we would have never started. But we luckily didn't. So we took a step at a time. And I will embarrass him by saying his name, but I remember a very big turning point for us was I was lurking around on LinkedIn. If anyone sees me on LinkedIn, you know how much I lurk around on LinkedIn. So just looking for other people in this space, like people who are doing interesting things. And I came across this fellow named Daza Greenwood, who he's a legal tech extraordinaire. Also in Oakland, California. He has relationships to MIT, and he has a company called civics.com, and he does a lot of really, really cool stuff. He was editor of a computational law journal and all these different things. And so somehow I caught him in a good moment, and he agreed to talk to us about what we were doing. So that started a really nice relationship where was our first advisor. And he really helped us think it through in the beginning. We just met a lot of really great people in the community. So that led us to Megan Ma from Stanford Law School, which we also led us to Rebecca Forden, who's a legal librarian from Ohio. I always say it's not Ohio State, it's the Ohio. Which one is it? I always get it wrong, and he always reprimands me.
It's at Ohio.
At Ohio, okay. The college football people know why that matters. I don't. But anyhow, so
I'm going to Ohio for a conference soon. So
good. Awesome. Make sure you say the right thing or you'll get in trouble.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. They take it very seriously. And so anyway, so basically that's a long way of saying we got really sort of folded into the legal tech community, which is awesome. It is like I've worked in a few different industries in my life, and I have to say legal tech is probably you have the smartest people, and they're actually very generous and open, like to the point maybe we just had good luck. I don't know. And the women of legal tech are like the best bunch of people you'll ever want to meet. So find us if you're interested in this space. Like it's awesome. And Ruby's a good example of that. But really what this sounds a little old fashioned, but I think some of the old fashioned, again, I'm marketing, some of the old fashioned marketing stuff really worked for us. Like getting to know people and networking. I know it sounds silly, but we saw a very big step in our sort of evolution after we did ABA Tech Show. So I can't recommend it enough. As you were mentioning, we were in the Startup Alley, which was great. We also had a booth. We did opt for like a real booth, and not that the Startup Alley ones aren't real, but we a larger paid booth, and it was so successful. We got some really good context out of that. Met so many people. So if anyone out there,
tell them about how we originally were going to start charging for it.
Why don't you tell them? Because you just said.
Well, I'm so used to being in the background, and I'm like the songwriter, and she just goes out and sings.
That's true. So, he just plays a piano in the back of the stage.
Yeah, well, we originally were going to put this out as a paid tool, but we launched we were starting to get ready in the beginning of 2023, and AI was just starting to gain so much steam, and we realized like No one knew who we were.
Mhm.
It's a big trust to put your credit card on some site you've never heard of and
Yeah.
all this. And
Especially for
to,
attorneys.
yeah, and to Kara's marketing chops, like she just mentioned, we were like, you know what? Why don't we just put this out there for free and let everybody use the search kind of like as if you're using Google? And so we let everybody use the search for free and ended up getting like, you know, thousands of searches a week and thousands of people using it a week. And then once we had that trust in place, we were able to add the paid tools we talked about, like the Citator and all that, because we built up some brand trust.
Mhm.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Kara.
awesome.
But yeah, the community. And like, if anyone out there, I know it's mostly practitioners listening, but if any of you have cool ideas and you want to start a tech thing, go to ABA Tech Show.
Well, and the other thing you didn't mention is you were giving out, not only did you have like a bigger booth, but and it was really well located because I was just like, you had like a little table and chair, and I was like sat there and started talking to you all and seeing the demo. But
Those tables
you
are
were
like
giving out
$400 a piece. We were like,
oh really? Oh.
it was
Well,
like a, yeah.
Now, don't embarrass Tech Show. That's at every conference.
Yeah.
But you guys were giving out like podcast gear and stuff. Like you were giving out
Oh, this is
you were giving
funny.
stuff out. Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm there.
Tell them your
Yeah,
story,
I didn't
Rich.
win
well,
anything,
no,
but
we decided to have a
A raffle.
you know, to
A
raffle
raffle?
just to get people
Yeah.
over to our booth, and so we had a bunch of stuff, and yeah, it actually worked out.
And this was so funny because we have like our legal librarian posse, we call them, and we love them. Like because you know they're librarians are kind of the lifeblood of the legal tech industry. You know, because they're not just the way you think of librarians, maybe sort of generally, they're deeply knowledgeable technologists, right? So we always took that as a good sign that they really liked us and hung around. And of course, since most of them work at academic institutions, they don't have huge budgets, so they really loved the raffle. It was pretty funny. They're all like, we had like 50 legal librarians. They were like, we don't get funding for this cool podcast. We want to win. It was pretty fun.
You know, before we mentioned it, because you've gone to some other conferences as well, but I just want to mention that our plan for 2026 is to put Access to Justice track in the exhibit hall so that if someone comes with just an exhibit hall pass, which is free, they can still benefit from that. So that's in the works.
Oh, nice.
It's still in the works, but that's a
great
plan.
idea.
And trying to be a champion for the Access to Justice content for us at being
Thank you.
on the board. Yeah,
That's smart.
Yay.
And so you do the ABA Tech Show. You get a boost. You meet some people, including me.
Yeah.
And no. And I'm so glad to
definitely.
get you on the podcast. Finally, this is great. And then you went to ILTACon.
Yeah, so we went to ILTACon. That was great, but it was. Let me tell you one more thing about ABA Tech Show, and I don't think he'd mind. One of the really really solid things that came out of that, besides meeting a bunch of cool people, was we met Doug Lusk from the National Society for Legal Technology, which is a curriculum that is distributed in like 350 plus law programs or universities across the world, and so he was searching around for someone who would replace case text in his curriculum, because case text, as you remember, used to have free access and now they do not. So he had his eyes on us, and it worked out that we are now in his curriculum. So we are in 350 law schools across the world, which is amazing. So that was a huge connection for us, and really it was worth every cent and bit of effort we put into going to ABA Tech Show. So thank you, ABA Tech Show, for
And the
making
nice
that.
tables and everything.
Yeah, it was really so. I mean, it was extremely meaningful for us. So, so the other conference we have presented at was ILTACon, which is the International Legal Technology something. ILTA, everybody knows ILTA. Association. Yes, thank you. So that was in Maryland, and it was at one of these really interesting hotels that I've never been to before. They're called like the Gaylord.
Oh yeah, I heard you talking about that on the
oh my gosh.
On the Legal Tech Week recap.
It was.
I've been there at least once or twice. Ayla's immigration attorneys. We've done conferences there. It's sort of like this whole little bubble. I know they have one in Nashville and Dallas
Yeah.
area. They're around the US. Yeah.
I was fascinated by this whole thing because basically, just if you can picture it, if you haven't been to one, it's basically like the whole thing is kind of under glass. So it's almost like you're in this little city. Yeah, like
I
inside.
said it would be like what we would have if they made a colony on Mars. or
Yeah,
something.
that's what it would feel like if you lived on Mars. It's Gaylord hotels on Mars. So just it's coming, people. Anyhow, so
There's also one in Orlando too. I've been to that one too.
oh, I bet that one's a trip. Yeah. I think it's going to be in Nashville next year. But anyway, so one thing is because Rich and I are new to this space, so we're learning the different things and just sort of the different energy and sort of conversations we had at one versus the other, because tech show is a little more like the mid-sized law firms and all that, right, in terms of like the target. And so we had a lot of individuals coming by and we did demo after demo after demo, and it was great. We had a lot of like actual practitioners coming by and talking to us about what we were doing. At ILTACon, it felt like it was definitely big law. So it was other tech partners in big law. So that one was sort of at a different level in terms of, I don't know how I would explain it, Rich. Just it was more like the buyers, people.
Yeah, and there were more
than
like
the practitioners.
companies coming by and saying, instead of tell us about your product, they're like, tell us about your data.
Yeah.
Can we get access to your data? And can we get access to your data? And
So it was more B2B than
yeah,
B2C, I guess.
it was interesting.
Yeah. But they're both great, just different vibe. Yeah. 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 Tell us about your data. Everybody wants data.
And then you are being honored once again with the Legal Tech Awards. It just came out recently that you're one of the finalists, right? For AI.
Yes, and
That's awesome.
thank you. And one of the best people in legal tech, if you don't know him, is Tom Martin from LawDroid. Great guy. Also, just a huge, I guess, advocate for legal technology and access to justice. And he's been doing a lot of this work for a long time. And so the American Legal Technology Awards is one of his efforts out there. And he's also an adjunct, I think, at Suffolk Law School. So it just so happens to be being at Suffolk Law School at this time in Boston. So if you're in this area and you're curious about legal tech, it's a great opportunity. The tickets aren't that expensive, and it's a nice dinner, and you'll meet some of the coolest people in legal technology, because CleoCon is also happening at that same time. So a lot of really neat, interesting people are in town for that. So,
and the odds are you'll get to hear Damian Reel sing.
Yeah, Damian Reel sings from VLEX, from Clio, VLEX/Clio. He does a mean Frank Sinatra. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I went to the awards last year and I was very impressed with everyone and also Damien's singing. So yeah, I've had him on the podcast, but actually didn't have him sing on the podcast. But I think he's actually speaking to my class this coming week. I was really excited to see that.
Great.
Yeah. I teach law practice management. So actually, with my book Power Up Your Practice, that reminds me, you know a lot of librarians. Been reaching out to librarians to make sure to get my book out to some of the law schools, because it's a resource for law students, and teaching them a really practical skill. I have like 28 hours to teach as much practicality as possible. I feel like a huge weight on my shoulders, but because I think it's some of the few classes that are very like, there's the clinics, there's my class, but to really giving them some practical skills. And once like
it's
AI
really
became
important.
more prevalent, I've been really, giving a lot more about tools and trying to get a lot of good guest speakers. Yeah.
It's changing fast.
It is changing fast. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by all the different things you have to do to run a law firm? Well, you're not alone. So many law firm owners are in the same boat. That's where Staffy steps in. More than 90 firms just like yours are leaning on their bilingual virtual staff for legal, administrative, marketing, and client-facing work, plus their full HR support. I currently have 11 team members with Staffy across my own firm and Power Strategy Group, and it's been a total game changer. Schedule a free initial consultation at staffy.cc, that's stafi.cc, and use the code RUBY, RUBY, for $500 off. So where do you see Describe going in the future? Like, where are you guys doing next?
we're going to keep building. And like Rich was mentioning earlier, we're very interested in what people want and need. So because we have this very sort of direct relationship with our customers and our users, we really build things that they ask for. I mean, we can't always, but for example, there was someone who said, why don't you have bankruptcy law? We said, okay, we'll get bankruptcy law, that kind of thing. And the things I was telling you about earlier with Spanish or with simplified. So we know what we know, but we don't always know what the users need. So we really encourage people to talk to us and tell us what they need. We didn't mention this because I don't want to be infomercially-ish, but the price is really, really low. So we did have to charge for some of it because we need to pay the bills, but we definitely have a vision of keeping low cost but very, very high quality tools available for people who need them. So we have plans. Oh, and the big thing we're adding now, Rich, do you want to talk about your big?
Yeah, I mean, we're the statutes and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people are always like you compare it to the tools that are out there. And so they're like, oh, it's great. We always think, oh, cool. We could kind of sit back a bit now that we have a citator. They're like, oh, yeah, it's great. You have good law, bad law, but where's the statutes and regs? So we're working on getting in statutes and regulations and court rules and constitutions and session laws and attorney general opinions. And so all that and we have a bunch of them in there already, and it's natural language searchable, which is actually kind of fun in that, like, you could type in amusement park and it'll find you carnival regulations, or liquor and it'll find like wine and beer, and so you don't have to know the exact names of the regulations and stuff or the exact terms. It's kind of cool, actually.
Did we load Texas yet?
Yeah, Texas.
Yeah, Ruby, you can take a look at Texas.
Texas regulations I just have to make them searchable.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have a bunch in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
So Rich never gets to sleep. That's the bottom.
You were just like wanting to chill out. Like, I did a great thing. And you're like,
that's the thing about being like having your wife be the marketing person and living together. Like I remember last spring, she's like, we need this website. We need this up on the website now. And I'm like, Cara, there's a Celtics playoff game on. Can I at least watch the end of the playoff?
They're going to win anyway. You know they're going to win. They're the Celtics.
Let me tell you the future.
Yeah, exactly.
that future case. Well, I mean, I think we could almost have you on just talking about how to run a business as a couple, but I mean, you just sort of your whole journey of breaking into this. And I mean, it's very similar to someone starting a practice, like, figuring out what the rules of the engagement are and how to find customers. But you're sort of you're breaking into, you're sort of like a disruptor in this model. And you're doing things differently.
Exactly. And I would even though I can't give advice on what it would be like to start a law practice, I can give advice just from any entrepreneur, like especially if you're a small team or just yourself, is like, be okay with saying you don't know what you don't know, and find people who do and have them help you. Like, you don't have to do it all yourself. And it's okay if it's marketing that isn't your thing, find someone to help you. If it's you really don't want to deal with the HR stuff, whatever, find someone to help you. Whatever it is, you will thank yourself in the long run that you didn't try to, just because you're very smart and an excellent attorney doesn't mean you can do marketing or whatever. And that's okay. Like, give yourself permission.
Oh, definitely great advice. Like, you don't have, give yourself permission to not know everything all
and don't be afraid of AI.
Time.
Yeah. Be cautious of AI, be smart, but don't let your fear stop you from dabbling. Find ways to dabble.
I've enjoyed having you both, and now we're getting to the part where I get to ask you some other fun fact questions. But before we do that, I just wanted to say, is there anything else we should be considering in the access to justice tech space in terms of what we could be doing as legal professionals to I don't know, to sort of try to represent those who might not always be represented, or other tools, or any feedback or thoughts, since you're more in that space than others?
Yeah, I would say pay attention to what's happening with the funding for LSC, and try to, if you are so inclined, try to do what you can to support making sure their funding isn't cut to a point where they are unable to function. So please, 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 please pay attention to that and talk to your local your local politicians about what matters to you or what matters to your bar association, et cetera. So there's that. Also, I think on the other side of things, we don't need to think about things in black and white, and in terms of if you have to be innovating, if you're innovating in the space, that you have to be a nonprofit to be in justice technology or to be in access to justice. I don't think that's true. I think with the number of unserved humans out there and people that need services, there are some very, very interesting opportunities from a market perspective as well. So try to think about that it's okay, to want to make money in this space, but to serve more people and to be helping solve the problem. It doesn't have to just be a pure nonprofit play. So keep that in mind, I think is important, because if we only look at it as something that can be done through a nonprofit lens, it's not going to draw as much innovation.
No, I definitely agree. And that's what really drew me to you both. Like I've been trying to represent a lot more in the immigration space and leveraging the technology to make that more feasible, and constantly evaluating and changing my paradigm and how to make that possible.
That's great.
I love that. Okay, fun fact questions. And so I guess I'll just ask and see whoever wants to answer. Favorite board game?
Oh, okay. This is easy. Clue. We love Clue. I think
I was
partially.
going to say that.
Well, tough. I said it first. And I always get to be Miss Scarlet. No, actually, I don't get to be Miss Scarlet anymore. My nieces always want to be Miss Scarlet. I now have been promoted to being Mrs. White. So, but we like to play it in English accents, which is really,
really
silly. Yes. It's really fun. Try it.
Try that. I'll have to try that. Okay.
It's
I think you're the first ones to ever say clue. So that's I'm gonna have to have my team make a diagram of all of the different answers. But we get a lot of Monopoly. But I love it when I hear a new one, because I learn a lot about people through what their favorite board game is.
yes.
What would you consider your superpower?
I've always had this ability to like kind of read people and see, like, tell if they're like upset or happy or whatever. And I don't know, it's kind of strange. I've been able to read people. That's mine.
So your superpower is being judgy?
No, it's not judgy.
I'm kidding. I would say mine is curiosity. I'm just curious about everything all the time. Like there's nothing I don't want to understand. Well, maybe a few things. Like calculus. I don't care about calculus.
You're like, that can be over there. I don't need to pay attention to that. What would you consider a habit that contributes to your success?
Mine is that I'm always trying to learn. Like we never would have gotten into this if, like, I was working at a day job just doing regular software engineering tasks, and the way I've always kept on top of things is at night and weekends learning the newest technologies. And this just happened to be one that, took off, and I was in on the ground floor of learning it. So I just think always be learning and improving, and those types of things that people have always talked about.
Yeah.
Awesome. What is a favorite book or podcast that you would recommend?
Okay, this has literally nothing to do with legal technology, so forgive me.
Fine. It doesn't.
But okay, good. I love The Hidden Brain, which is it's on NPR, so it's a regularly broadcast show, but it's also a podcast, and it's just fascinating because it really gets into like how we think and why we do what we do. So it'll get into sort of conversations about neuroscience, but it's very accessible, and so it's sort of like peeking into the human brain and why we behave the way we do. Like there'll be things about jealousy or fear or addiction or all this stuff. So it's really, really interesting.
And wow. I take a lot of long walks with the dog, and I listen to a lot of spy thriller books on Audible just to get my brain away from this stuff. I kind of like those, twists and international things like that. It's kind of fun. So Cara does these puzzles at night, and I'm like, my
Yeah.
brain is so fried. I could not do a puzzle right now if I wanted to. Like on the magazines and stuff. She does
like
all those.
crosswords. Yeah.
Oh, is that what they are?
Well,
I
like
thought you do it working.
Sudoku and whatever.
Yes.
While I'm sitting in my rocking chair knitting, I do my crosswords.
You can knit and do crosswords at the same time.
So
She's kidding. She doesn't knit.
No, I don't. It just sounds like that's what you were describing.
And Cara, you have a podcast as well. So I know that wasn't listed as your favorite, but that's fine. We know.
Yeah.
But it's tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I'm such a fangirl of like everything that people are doing. So even though we didn't say it, like another superpower, what's helped me be successful, I guess, is I never feel like I'm successful unless other people are too. Like, so I love to like bring people along. It's just my favorite thing. I love connecting people. So I got really interested in the AI space overall and sort of equity in AI, women in AI, just AI in general, ethical AI. So we started a podcast with my co-host, Anna DeVere, called Building AI Boston. And basically we're just talking to people, and you don't have to be in Boston. We're like, it's a Boston state of mind. So we're talking about just people doing cool stuff with AI and solving like problems, and we're trying to make AI approachable and not scary for people who feel a little intimidated. So it's just been fun. It's really a fun podcast.
Oh, awesome. Well, how can people find you and stay in touch with you both?
Yeah, so you can always reach out on our website. We have our email information in the bottom of the website, but the easiest place to find me, because I basically live there, is on LinkedIn. So happily find me there, and let me know if you have any questions. And and Rich is on there too, but I'm better about checking my inbox than he is.
That's true.
It is true.
And how do they find Descrybe? But for the listeners, it's DESCRYBE.ai, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
That's
awesome.
right.
So go take a look at that. And you'll be at the Legal Tech Awards as a finalist. So fingers crossed for you and Describe. And you're in Boston, so there's lots of different conferences there, including the CleoCon this year, and probably other ones. So I was actually just there.
Oh, nice.
I was just there last week. I realized now that I should have reached out.
We should have had lunch.
Time for
Yeah.
First, we'll be at ABA Tech Show next year, of course. So
I'll be there for sure. So that sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Cara and Richard, for joining us. This was a great, insightful conversation about access to justice, being adventurous, breaking into a whole nother industry, and just going just being curious and continuing to find ways to help others and be a disruptor, honestly. So kudos to both of you, and I'm so glad to have met you at ABA Tech Show, and I know you guys are going far, and just wanted to highlight your work, and let's continue to stay in touch. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Power Up Your Practice. I'm Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. We love your reviews, so if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us one and share this podcast with someone else so that they can know what you've been learning on our show. And make sure to check out the Power Up Your Practice book. It's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon. It's packed with 25 chapters of strategies to grow and streamline your firm. And we also have the free Power Hub community on School to keep the conversation going in between the episodes. So make sure to keep powering up your practice, and we'll see you next time.